Welcome back, guys, to Rolling with Carlos. Today we're going to go ahead and discuss, do the Miami Dolphins, mainly does Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel really care about, like they said at the end of the year press conference, about the trenches? Do they really care about the trenches? Omar Kelly wrote an opinion article about 2 weeks ago that caught my eye. It was on March 18th, 2025. Omar Kelly of the Miami Herald wrote an article that is titled, "Dolphins Remain Soft in the Trenches and Seemingly Don't Care." Ladies and gentlemen, this article caught my eye from Omar Kelly for the simple fact that Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel mentioned that they cared about the trenches, that they were going to try to fix the trenches, especially the offensive line. But I'm going to go ahead and read to you the article, and then I'll go ahead and give you my opinion, read to you another article, and state to you that this might be like an easy way of them trying to say, okay, we might only be here one more year, so why even bother with trying to fix the trenches, ladies and gentlemen? And then I'm going to go ahead and give you my reasoning as to why I believe they're not fixing the trenches. Give me a second. Let me get to the article. Okay, this is the article from Omar Kelly. Teron Armstead hasn't decided if he'll play another season or will end his career after 12 seasons. The man who has anchored the Miami Dolphins offensive line for the past 3 seasons, starting 38 regular season games, could easily go either way with the decision that the team knows this and is supposed to be planning accordingly. Miami has already drafted his replacement in Braxton Paul, but asking the 2024 second-round pick to replace a 5-time Pro Bowler and do it seamlessly is no small task. Neither is the position general manager Chris Greer finds himself in. Asked to change a soft finesse team, one that he built, by the way, into one that's physical and forceful enough to challenge the Buffalo Bills for the AFC East supremacy. At the end of last season, Greer supposedly learned the error of his ways, and at the end of the year promised to rebuild the trenches. Problem is, we're still waiting. Last year, Greer was negligent with Miami's trenches in free agency, signing a handful of 300-pounders to 1-year minimum salaries. And the draft, and it showed on the field. Outside of playing 6.5 games without quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, who was sidelined by the concussion he sustained in week 2 and a hip injury that sidelined him for the final 2 games of the 2024 season. The Dolphins' lackluster trench play on offense and defense weighed last year's 8-9 team down. Miami's rushing game was the strength of the 2023 team, producing 2,308 rushing yards and 27 touchdowns disappeared last season. The Dolphins averaged a pedestrian 4.0 yards per carry and scored just 12 rushing touchdowns on 448 attempts. Only 4 teams, Kansas City, Dallas, Las Vegas, and the Los Angeles Rams, were worse when it came to running the ball in 2024. Blame that on Austin Jackson's mid-season knee injury all you want, but the interior of Miami's offensive line was a disaster all season, and outside of the signings of James Daniels to a respectable 3-year, $24 million contract, Greer has done little to change that so far. And what's troubling is that Miami's present defensive line is in even worse shape heading into the 2025 NFL Draft. On too many instances, Miami struggled stopping the run last season. Opponents might have averaged 4.335 yards per carry against Miami's defense, which ranks Miami ninth in rushing yards at 103.5 yards per carry. But the shortcomings were extremely obvious when Calais Campbell wasn't on the field. And the Dolphins went from setting franchise records in sacks, 56 in 2023, to producing just 35 in 2024. Miami ranked 27th in sacks per passing attempt, and the lack of pressure applied contributed to the secondary struggles last season. Getting back healthy versions of Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, who are both nursing serious knee injuries, should help, but someone has to set the table for the pass rushing duo. And at the moment, Miami only has 3 defensive linemen, Zach Zeeler, Neil Farrell, and Matt Dickerson, under contract. And 2 of those defensive linemen are fringe NFL players who began their tenure with the Dolphins on the practice squad last year. As things stand, with the NFL Draft a month away a month and a half away, Campbell turns 39 in September. Doesn't resign with the Dolphins, the team could be in some serious trouble. Soft trenches yet again. Of course, re-signing Benito Jones and Emmanuel Agba, 2 of last season's starters who remain free agents, would help. But there's reasons both are still on the market, and Miami could easily add a veteran such as Raquan Davis, who spent 4 years as a starter in Miami before leaving for Indianapolis last season. There's still time to add veterans who often take their time to find the right fit. The ideal situation, but Greer not reinforcing the trenches for a second straight offseason is not reassuring. And quite honestly, it feels like yet another empty promise that isn't being delivered on. The Dolphins should be commended for the franchise's fiscal responsibility approach to free agency this spring. They have lived off Big Daddy's credit card for far too long. Owner Stephen Ross seemingly encouraged the franchise to dial the big spending back. Last offseason, Miami handed out $121 million in bonuses alone for 4 players: Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Ramsey, and Jalen Waddle. And it produced an 8-9 season, which is a byproduct of lackluster seasons for all 4. So I don't blame Ross for cutting off their irresponsible spending, if that was the case. But the fact that Miami hasn't properly or effectively addressed what was at the root of last year's issues is stunning. Head scratching. While the offseason isn't over, Miami's continued negligence when it comes to improving, enhancing, and reinforcing the trenches will ultimately lead to everyone's demise. So basically, Omar Kelly is saying that he expects Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel, if we continue down this path, that they are not addressing the trenches, will not be here during 2026. Let me go ahead and read to you another article, then I'm going to go to Spot Track. If you guys give me a minute after I read to you the article by Habib from the Palm Beach Post. He wrote this on March 21st, 2025. Miami Dolphins Patrick Paul suddenly in a curious situation as NFL draft nears. The curious case of Patrick Paul is one that could elicit nothing but laughter as soon as the fall, or it could go down as the first warning bell we should have listened to. At this point, no one knows what's closer to the truth, not the ones sounding the alarms, not Miami Dolphins general manager Chris Greer, and not coach Mike McDaniel. The sample size is so painfully small today that anyone who knows they know for certain is lying. It was less than 2 years ago that the Miami Dolphins used their second round pick on Paul, an offensive tackle from Houston, with the expectation he would succeed left tackle Terron Armstead whenever Armstead retires. Since that time might be now, the logical assumption is that Paul ascends to the throne on the left side. Austin Jackson returns from injury to hold down the right tackle spot, and Tua Tagovailoa lives happily ever after. ESPN's Mel Kiper wonders whether Patrick is the answer at left tackle. And may that well happen. Although these past few days, some are casting doubt on the real-life version of Succession playing out in Miami Gardens. When ESPN draft guru Mel Kiper first floated the idea of the Dolphins using the first-round pick, 13 overall, on a left tackle, it was easy to wonder if all that hair had gotten to his brain and he had forgotten that Miami played that card in last year's draft. Patrick Paul, one huge human being, kinda hard to miss. But on a conference call with reporters Wednesday, Kiper initially doubled down on doubts when asked if the Dolphins should feel good about Paul starting at left tackle. Possibly, Kiper said. There are a lot of things teams want to think about when they think about left tackle. Possibly being able to handle the league's best pass rushers isn't one of them. Either the guy can or he can't. You've got to protect Tua, Kiper said. That's not all. Drew Rosenhaus, speaking on Miami's WSBN Channel 7, where he appears on Sunday nights, also floated the idea that the Dolphins need a left tackle. Picking at 13 virtually assures the Dolphins access to a premier offensive tackle, should they choose to go in that direction. But let's be clear, doing so could only be perceived as an admission that they overreached on Paul, not unless one of the three tackles is ticketed to move to guard. There's no such thing as a good time to waste a high draft pick, but this would be a horrible time, especially for those doing the selecting. But let's catch a breath and first take into account some facts. Patrick Paul is 6'7", 332 pounds, numbers that don't do him justice standing next to him. You'd probably be more inclined to guess he's 7'7", and if he claimed to be 7'7", you would not in agreement to reduce any risk he might crush you like a grape. Patrick is only 23 years old. He can still remember what was like to finally be able to order a beer. And if his NFL career is consistent on three starts out of 17 games in which he appeared. How many of us require 3 tries just to remember where we left our sunglasses? Patrick Ball had his best mentor a rookie tackle could ask for in Armstead. And even if Armstead no longer is with the Dolphins in 2025, rest assured, anytime Paul wants to reach out to Armstead, we'll be happy to help. Patrick Paul Butchberry as his online coach is a huge plus. So why are people in a lather? For what it's worth, Paul standing on the Pro Football Focus doesn't help the service rated Paul 78th out of 81 offensive tackles in 2024. He received a grade of 55.8 for his pass protection and 41.0 for his run blocking. For those numbers sound minuscule, even if you're unfamiliar with PFF grading system, it's because they are. Think about how you feel if you saw them on your child's next report card. Look deeper though. For the first half of the season, Paul's grades hovered from the mid-50s to the 60s. But when Paul was pressed into duty the final 1.5 weeks of the season, he was hit with his lowest 2 grades of 47.5 against the Browns and 42.1 versus the New York Jets. Of course, it didn't help that the Browns have Myles Garrett and Jets had Quentin Williams. Talk about a welcome to the NFL. December also gave Paul the opportunity to start against Houston, one of the 3 starts, all losses. Combined, Paul received a 28.5 for run blocking against the rugged Texans front and 26.6 for pass protection in the Cleveland game, allowing 3 pressures, and 39.6 versus the Jets, in which he allowed 0 sacks and 4 pressures. The Dolphins' most recent comments about Paul, they're optimistic, is what they thought he was. Each week, he has been able to keep building and getting better in pass protection. And with the run fundamentals, offensive coordinator Frank Smith said in January. So it's a guy who really is using his time to grow. And we're excited about him, really, short term and long term. Greer is too. Adding Patrick Paul, we feel he's going to be a good player, Greer said. Anyone that Smith and Greer are mistaken might want to think back a few years back when everybody thought the Dolphins whiffed on another offensive tackle. Funny, but you don't hear many Austin Jackson critics now, don't you? Guys, we got to give Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel one last shot. If you look at Spot Track, which I'll pop it up in during the video when you see the video, all the free agents we have signed have been signed to basically a 1-year contract. I'll go ahead and show you in the video the free agent. If you look into the contracts on Spot Track, you will see that all the free agents, even though they say 3-year, 1-year, 2-year, with all the free agents, and I'm with Omar Kelly that the only good free agent the Dolphins have signed, well, 2 of them, is the punter from Tennessee, and Daniels, the tackle that they got from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Outside of that, the rest of the free agents have been terrible. Leave me your thoughts down below, what you think of the free agency, and I'll link down the Spot Track and also pop it up in the video so you can see it. Let me know what you think about the free agency pickups and what you think the Dolphins will do in the NFL draft in this month, in a few weeks. The NFL draft is getting closer. And do you agree with Omar Kelly and Mr. Patrick Habibi that the Dolphins are not doing anything? And are Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer just doing it to try to survive and see if they can scrape 10 or 11 wins and they can get another season out of the owner, Stephen Ross. Leave me your thoughts down below. Leave me your comments down below. Also, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want custom cups, custom candles, or custom keychains, check it out at rollingwithcarlos.com. And remember, YouTube merch should be coming soon to rollingwithcarlos.com. You have a great day. Peace.